morning, everybody. Judea Hartley here. Welcome back into the one and only AM show. Happy Thursday once again. All right, folks, y'all know we always have something exciting and enlightening happening right here on the AM show. At the top of the show, we tease a flat-out fantastic guest. And guess what, y'all? Y'all know that we always deliver. So right here in studio, we have the author, the community organizer, the professor, the doctor, the reverend, my professor. I want you to infuse that enthusiasm wherever you are and show your love for my professor, Dr. Willie Francois III. Woo! Dr. Francois, I just have to, this is incredibly surreal for me right now. It is, sir. And it's euphoric for me right now. And I'm going to try to make it to the end of this interview with both of my lashes on so I don't start crying, because I am just, me being grateful that you have agreed to come on the show. That's an understatement.
Oh, wow.
I am beyond grateful for you. I'm beyond excited that you are with me in person here today. I mean, everything that you're doing, that's exactly why you are who you are.
Oh, wow.
That's exactly why you've touched the lives of so many students, me included. And I want to thank you. Before we get into the interview, of course, we're going to get into that thing, but I want to thank you for being a major agent of change. Oh, wow. A major agent of change. I don't admire a lot of people, but my admiration and respect for you is top tier. Wow. And Doctor, I have to give you your flowers. You guys, Dr. Francois was my professor at New York Theological Seminary. I received my Doctor of Ministry degree in social justice. He was the overseer of the social justice cohort. The only reason why I received that degree was because of him. Yes, I credit him for his leadership.
You did a lot of hard work, though.
Thank you, sir.
You earned the degree. It was not given to you by any means.
Thank you, sir. But he certainly served as a major element in facilitating, right, my educational pursuit. And graduation was this past May. Right. This is an honor for me. He's so busy, carved out time out of his busy schedule. I have the honor of sitting next to my professor, who's Dr. Willie Francois, as Dr. Judea Hartley. Yeah. So I thank you.
No, thank you, Dr. J.
Yes, I thank you so much, sir.
I don't think I've been able to say that since graduation in May. But,
yeah.
We are at New York Theological Seminary. We are really impressed by your journey, and I know as an educator, I think that our legacies are tied up in the people that we nudge in the direction that life has already been pulling them. Yeah. And so I count it an honor to be able to say that I was able to partner with you to get you wherever life is going to take you, and the just immeasurable gifts that you bring to the world. So thank you for letting us partner with you and journey with you.
Thank you. Oh, wow. I'm so touched. Thank you so much. Well, my co-host Nadine, she was absolutely right. You have your hands in some incredible, like Dr. Francois, we knew, right? Our entire cohort. Hey, Brandon. Hey, Eric. Hey, y'all. Hey, Sharon. Like, we knew you were the man. I received your official bio, and I said, this is exactly why. This is why he was my professor. Let's start with one of your titles that you do so well. I know that you are a reverend. You are a reverend of a church in New Jersey. You are the senior pastor of Fountain Baptist Church, which is located in New Jersey. So with that being said, my question to you, because I sort of was running from the call, when did you realize that it was God's desire for you to pastor? We always talk about love and faith and positivity on this show, so we're going to keep it there. When did you realize, like, all right, God, I'm going to listen to you?
Yeah, so I actually embraced my call for ministry, my call to preach, when I was 16 years old at the First Union Baptist Church in Galveston, Texas. So 2003, a 16-year-old high school band head, and I grappled with what it would mean to surrender to a life that was committed to faith and a life that was committed to the church. I didn't know that I was going to pastor, because I was actually resistant to the idea of leading a local congregation until maybe about a decade ago.
Wow.
So Yeah, that's been the kind of circuitous journey for me. I remember in college really thinking that I was going to be in the academy full time, to be a full-time professor, and preaching would be something that I did on an invitational basis, on an ad hoc basis. But really, life has threaded those two things together for me. Really, life has threaded three things for me, at least, in terms of how I think about my vocation and call in life, and that is church-based ministry, the academic institutions like where you and I met, and also what it means to be a community organizer. How do we allow this intellect and theology to live on the streets in ways that we are helping folk build power, so that we can have the world that we deserve, and not just the world that we've been given and the world that we've inherited because of the fruit of indifference, the fruit of negativity, and hyperpartisanship. So I've been preaching since I was 16, but I was probably only 10 years ago that I thought about what it would mean to create a life in full-time ministry.
Wow. Yeah. I had no idea. Okay, so you said something, Dr. Francois, and you said that you never imagined, it wasn't really your desire to preach or to spread your positivity, your love, your insight, and your faith to a local congregation. I'm curious, why? Why were you opposed to that?
So as a younger minister, I experienced some levels of spiritual injury that I think were connected to the ageism that just exists in organized, in institutional life, period. I think that to talk about it as a part of the local church is just a manifestation of what it means to live in a society that is deeply structured around how do we lock people out and how do we bring people in. And one of the isms that I think we obscure in church is ageism, right? And so as a teenage preacher in a conservative part of our state, there were episodes in my journey that really diverted me or deterred me from thinking about what it would mean to be invested in church, because I had deep suspicions about the conservatism, deep suspicions about the cronyism, deep suspicions around some of the thoughtlessness that I thought was happening in local congregation that was fueled by local church leaders. And I just needed a new frame of reference. I needed a new model for what it meant to do that. And I'm grateful that life has created channels that have brought significant voices of women and men who are older than I am and some younger than I am, who have created a new template for me for what it means to be a local leader, a local pastor, a local organizer.
Oh, I love that. I love that you mentioned ageism, because Dr. Francois, you actually helped me through this. I don't know if you remember.
Really?
Yes, you did, sir. I don't know if you remember, but as you know, and as we know here on the show, I am a young pastor.
Right,
I'm only 31. I am a young pastor and female.
Sure.
And I always struggled with, I said, Lord, I want to spread my love. I want to uplift. I want to spread positivity. That's what we're about here on the show and in my personal life. But I'm like, Lord, I don't know if they're going to listen to me, because I didn't know if I had anything to say, because, no, you know what? Let me be frank. I knew I had something to say. I knew I did. But I didn't know if they were going to respect that, because many members of my congregation, they're older than me, right?
Sure.
60, 55, and maybe some of the things that you've gone through, I haven't gone through as of yet. That doesn't mean that God hasn't called my voice. That doesn't mean that I can't serve as an agent of change and provide different POVs. That doesn't mean that I can't introduce intersectionality within the church. It doesn't mean that. So you actually helped me through that. You helped me to, yes, you did, sir. I credit that 100% to Dr. Francois and my dad. They really, really helped me find my voice in that way. So speaking of helping me find my voice and helping me discover and uncover different leadership styles, I know in our classroom setting, you've taught us different leadership styles. I was ignorant to this before enrolling in your cohort. And I know that there's transitional leadership, there's adaptive leadership, there's transformative leadership. You've taught me this, but can you share with our viewers, what are the differences between the three? Adaptive, transformative, transitional?
Sure. Well, I can't say that we have enough time to delve into those distinctions per se, but when I think about transformative leadership, I think about leadership that in one hand, is committed to creating mutuality. Right? So often we think about communities that are leader-centered.
Yeah.
What do we do based on what the leader wants us to do? Versus on thinking about group-centered leadership. All right. So for me, transformative leadership is how do we harness and galvanize the energies of a collective in order to pave a path forward, versus how do we think about a charismatic leader, a charismatic person who drives all of the priorities, all of the values, and all of the vision. So when I think about transformative leadership of all of those, it becomes incumbent upon the leader to democratize what it means to shape community, what it means to build consensus, what it means to drive a shared vision for what's possible. Transitional leadership is what's the bridge work that gets us from here to there. It tends to be temporary. It tends to be singularly focused on a particular thing or in a particular time frame. And adaptive leadership for me is how are we thinking about it? Similar to this transitional piece, but this adaptive leadership is also about it is temporary to some extent, but it's also committed to how are we doing some internal renovation of who we are, some internal redesign of who we are as a community. And I think all three types of leadership invite us to name the fact that people don't just have DNA, but institutions and organizations have DNAs. People don't just have culture, organizations have culture. And I've heard for years that culture eats vision for lunch every single day because culture tends to be more powerful, more pronounced, more pervasive than vision can be. And so if you're adaptive, transformative, or if you are transitional, it's about how do I develop a contextual intelligence? How do I learn my context, the culture of my context, the DNA of my context in a way that we can build something together that doesn't just rest on the singular leader who's generally in the front.
Woo! And let the church say. Oh my God, you guys, this was my experience. It was. Dr. Francois, it was my experience.
No, we had a great time. We had a great time.
Fantastic.
We had a great time. I mean, growing together though, learning from each other. I always talk about our learning experience as wisdom exchange. One of the things that I think is important for all education, and this is principally important for how we are working with youth and working with children, is to develop a learner teacher learner model. That at any moment we change roles. Right? There's some moments where you are the teacher and I'm the learner, or I'm the teacher and you're the learner, but it's that kind of flexibility and mutuality that I think is important.
You're gonna make me cry. You're gonna make me cry. This was my experience, and I love that. Dr. Francois, I love that your teachings and your philosophy are centered almost around like a democratic church. Almost. It is. It's like for the people, by the people, driven with the people. It's not just a dictatorship. No, I am not telling you this is what I want, this is what it should be. In order to build healthy community, I have to build healthy relationships. I have to get to know who you are, what speaks to you, what are the millennials responding to, what are the Gen Z generation responding to. How do we bridge this generational gap? Where are our communities going to be in 10 years? And if that is in a desolate space, how can we avoid that? What do we need to do? What evolutionary elements do we need to incorporate in order to bridge this gap so there won't be breakage in our heritage, breakage in our church history and community history? So I love that. Speaking of creating a community, creating a church, creating relationships driven by people and what's important to them. Of course, I do my research on you, of course, even before enrolling into your class. And I was looking at one of your empowerment seminars, and you mentioned that your community teaches you how to lead. More specifically, you said your church, right? Your church teaches you how to preach. Your community, our brothers and our sisters, our elephant family, y'all show us how to lead. How is that? Elaborate on that. How do they show me how to lead?
Sure. One of the things that I have learned to appreciate is the art of admitting what I don't know. And that requires a level of theological humility.
Yeah.
It requires some intellectual agility, the capacity to move quickly and to think nimbly. And people have taught me that I am not the smartest person in the room, and I don't always have the best answer for what it means to forge forward. And some of it is I started pastoring young. I was 28 when I was called to my first church in the southern part of New Jersey. And there was a magnanimous type of grace that 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, 90-year-olds extended me as their leader, that taught me what it means to practice grace as a leadership ethic. To practice grace as a way of engaging the people. And so most of my life philosophy is around what it means to embody love. I always say, be love. In fact, the tattoo I have here on my left arm is be love. That love is a state of grace. It is not just some sentimentality. It is not just a feeling, but it is a way of being in the world. It is an identity. And people have taught me that by the ways that they have sacrificed for their families, the ways that they have made little stretch in order to sustain the community, the ways that they have practiced grace in people who are exceedingly flawed, but no less valuable and no less sacred and no less holy. And so, like, when I think about leadership, I'm not thinking only about how do I get people to do what I want them to do, or how do I get a job done. When I think about leadership, I'm thinking about what does it mean for us to be human, and how do we define our humanity along the lines of love, and grace, and justice, and liberation, and mutuality. And people have taught me that. And when I say people, I'm talking about grandmothers who didn't have the privilege to go to NYTS or Harvard or Morehouse or Yale, but people who learned what it meant to be human and to do good work, in Alabama before they came to New Jersey. Folk who picked cotton in Mississippi, worked fields, sharecropping in Louisiana. I'm a descendant of sharecroppers from Louisiana, and there's a kind of genius, folk genius, that those folk carry with them that I think is in our DNA even now. Those of us who are descendants of folk like that, and really I think it's a human question I'm talking about. But for me, in my particularity, I know that I'm a descendant of American slaves. But there's something that those folk who we may avert eyes at, folk that we don't fully take their wisdom seriously, are the people who have taught me how to pastor, people who have taught me how to follow God, follow Jesus.
Wow. Absolutely floored. I feel like I know we're going to go to a quick commercial break in just a second, but Dr. Francois, just being here with you, I feel like now I've become a better leader. Just every time I'm in his presence, every time I have the privilege of being in his presence, I always learn something new. And I always tell my church, I carry the good news. I am not the good news. I am not the good news. I will show you toward the direction of love and light. And what I love what you're saying is intersectionality and inclusivity. I'll show you the way. But that doesn't mean, unfortunately, that I will always exemplify that. Exemplify that in a precise manner. And I love your philosophy in terms of leadership, especially transformative leadership, because it really speaks to the real definition for me of power. And I had a false narrative of power. I'm going to be honest and admit that. I thought initially power meant directing people and telling them what to do and almost adapting to the superior mindset. And that's quite the contrary. Power really simply means that you are tasked with the responsibility of empowering those in your embrace, right? So we speak to the janitor the same way we speak to the CEO. We don't demand unrealistic expectations. We don't do that. My job is to equip you so you can succeed and catapult without me. In the absence of my presence, you you are to feel more powerful after you leave me, after we transition and depart from each other. So I take care of you. And I love that Pastor Walrun, actually, Dr. Lakeisha's husband, Pastor Walrun, he taught a class for this, I think it was the second or third semester, and he said something so profound that resonated with me. He said, Judea, you want to know how a church is, the dynamic of it, the operation, if it's healthy or not? You have the people, you have to look at the DNA of the church, the foundations, how it was established, what it was established in. Is this is this individuality, or is this a collective thing? So it really is about leadership style and approach. And it just makes you such a good, well-rounded individual. Leader, individual, husband, wife, father, mother. It really, really does. You guys, we have so much more to dig into. Of course, we're going to talk about all of the accomplishments, Morehouse, Harvard, being elected as a scholar, Martin Luther King Jr., you were awarded with that. We're going to get into all of those details. And of course, Dr. Willie Francois' book, White Noise. We're going to get into all of those logistics. When we return, we're going to head on over to a quick commercial break, but stick and stay, y'all. We want your face to be in the place because we have so much more after these messages. There he is. Welcome back to the AM show, everybody. Up on your screens here, you can see our special guest for today in the person of Dr. Willie Francois III and my professor. Let's give it up for Dr. Willie Francois sticking with us this morning. Yes, that's it, y'all. That's it, y'all. We are so elated and we are excited to continue to have this wisdom exchange. Now, Dr. Francois, you have accomplished so much. I mean, from joining a fraternity to going to New York Theological Seminary, of course, to teach, to being awarded different academic achievement awards. I want to take it all the way back to the year of 2009.
Okay.
So I read that you were awarded with the Martin Luther King Jr. Scholar Award. Now, I want you to walk us through that. How did that come about, and what were the stipulations and requirements in order to receive such an award?
Sure. I mean, that was a lifetime ago now. But so I went to Morehouse College.
Yes.
And Morehouse College, all-male HBCU in Atlanta, Georgia. It is the alma mater of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose life and public witness has, posthumously, because he's been dead my entire life, has shaped how I understand ministry, how I understand what it means to be a leader, and what it means to engage the world in reparative and transformative ways, right? So when I talk about this King Scholarship, when you name this King Scholarship, it brings back a flood of really formative memories at Morehouse that were connected to my own emulation of Dr. King's voice, not the literal voice, but the kind of figurative voice that Dr. King brought into the world. I was a part of what's called the Martin Luther King Jr. International Chapel. I was the president of the chapel, and it's a pre-seminarian program. It's a program at Morehouse that really feeds the nation's best seminaries. So many of the black males who are in seminaries, whether we are talking about Harvard Divinity School, Yale Divinity School, Union Theological Seminary, Emory's Emory's Candler School of Theology, many of the black men come from Morehouse, and they come from the chapel assistant program. Because that's what the chapel does. It shapes brothers and sisters, but primarily men, because it's an all-male school. But we had several of our Spelman sisters there with us to do seminary and to do seminary well. And so the MLK Scholarship was an award that the founding dean of the chapel, Lawrence Edward Carter, would give to a student that he perceived to have really high promise for performing well in seminary and ultimately going on to be one of the nation's nation's great theological leaders. I don't know if Dean Carter's investment has panned out or not, but when I think about that King Scholarship, it set me on the trajectory for thinking about what it would mean to become a public theologian, what would it mean for me to be a professor, and how do I tie all those things into the way that I fight for justice and the way I serve local congregation. So that award itself, whether I deserved it or not, is a greater question, but that award that has connected my life to Dr. King's legacy and put me on this path that I have now. I know you because of that award that I received in 2009.
Wow, powerful. And you really got, I know that one of the incredible things that you do, you are a community organizer. Yes, you are.
I believe
absolutely. And I've had the opportunity to visit the National Action Network.
Sure.
So of course, by spearheaded by Reverend Al Sharpton. So that's up in the Bronx, I believe, up in the Bronx, up in Manhattan for so many years. And I also know that you have a passion for the incarcerated.
Sure.
We actually, you guys, fun fact, Dr. Willie Francois took us on a field trip. This was towards graduation, and we visited the Exodus.
Right.
You do.
Exodus
I know.
Transitional
The Exodus Transitional Community. They've been on the show as well, just really sharing their stories of restoration. Sharing their stories of recovering and just really turning their lives completely around. I'm going to just pivot just a little bit.
Okay.
I want to know, where did your love or your desire to really cater and spread love, positivity, and pray for those incarcerated, where did that stem from?
So what I will say is that when I was at Harvard, I was trying to figure out if I was an activist, because I didn't see myself as an activist. I saw myself as a practitioner of justice, right? And that was a healthy distinction for me then, because I wanted to figure out, how do we do life better with folk who are incarcerated and or formerly incarcerated, right? And this passion for engaging the incarcerated and formerly incarcerated, those who are caught up in the carceral state, as we talk about them, came from survivor's remorse. I had several of my favorite cousins who just disappeared. And because of the shame that families hold around incarceration, no one really told me where they were. We would use phrases like, they're up the river, they went to college, they're in the Bahamas. But reality was they were incarcerated. And one of the things that really slapped me awake, that gave me survivor's remorse, is that I am no smarter than my cousins. I am no more Christian than my cousins. I'm no more deserving than my cousins, but I am at Morehouse and they are in jail, right? They are in prison. And I went on a journey of figuring out, how could I get to college and how could they be in prison when there is literally very little difference between who I am and who they are. And that woke me up to the idea that our carceral system is not just about public safety. Our carceral system is not just about how do we stop crime. Our carceral system is actually a form of racialized and class-based social control that is designed to suck it's a suction machine that takes black women, black men, brown men out of our communities and puts them under state control. And I had to grow to learn that, right? And it was in Michelle Alexander's book was helpful for me to learn that. And it is why I am an abolitionist now, is because I learned, in the words of James Baldwin, I'm not saying that everybody in prison is innocent, but what I'm saying is sometimes you have to say the law is guilty. The system is guilty. And so the work I do as an abolitionist and as an educator is to make our systems atone for the guilt that it should feel for how it has treated black, brown people in our country and poor white people in our country.
See, this really just reminds me of evolution. It reminds me of evolution. It reminds me of, like, what can we do? It's not enough for one of us to be successful when our family is struggling. It's not, just like you talked about leadership, it's not enough for the church or the community to be ran on the strength or on the perspectives of one person. Is definitely a collective effort, which to me encompasses evolution. I was watching, we're going to get back to that, but this just dropped in my mind. I was watching this motivational video, Dr. Francois, and it was this faith-based leader. He was great too, and he was speaking about practices that really offend community and really offend God. And he mentioned procrastination being one, procrastination being a poison. He mentioned gossip being one. When gossip spreads, it's about when you release a negative word about somebody, it's a poison that spreads quickly. When you are ungrateful, it's contradictory to what the Lord tells you to do. Be grateful in all things, serve him with a good heart. I mean, all of these things, it just, our humanity really doesn't line up with many of the practices that God wants us to embody. It doesn't. So with all of that being said, it really brings about this question, how do we become good people? How do we, before we're leaders, before we're fathers and husbands, how, Dr. Francois, in your mind, do you think, how do we become good people? Does it start with gratitude? Does it start with accountability? Does it start with internal reflection? What can we do just to become good people?
Well, I
show love.
I live with the theological opinion that human beings are born good. And there is goodness embedded in us. It's what Howard Thurman talks about as that spark of divinity that lives within the depths of every single person. The question is, how do we cultivate that pre-existing goodness that's already in us? Right? And some of it is learning how to see ourselves differently, learning how to see humanity not as a creature that is depraved, but a part of creation that is endowed with limitless possibilities, right? Endowed with goodness. If we learn how to re-see ourselves, right? I know I can say this on a faith show, to understand that being created in the image of God is not just about identity, but it has an ethical mandate connected to it. There's certain things that I don't do to myself or do to you because you are a reflection of the most sacred. You are a reflection of the ultimate. That capacity to re-see ourselves, to revision, to re-lens our lives in ways that we begin to stare in the mirror and see goodness and see the embodiment of love and see the enfleshment of hope, to see the incarnation of peace is a very different way to orient ourselves to engage the world. Verse is the deficit-based, problem-adjacent ways that we've been taught to see ourselves, understand ourselves, and engage ourselves. And I'm not talking about engaging in narcissism. No, I'm talking about engaging in a form of self-love that frees you up to love everyone around you. To know that to share love with everyone doesn't depreciate what love means, but it actually appreciates. It gives greater value to love the more you share it, not the more you hoard it.
Yes.
I think that those are the foundations of a good life.
Yes. To appreciate it, to not hoard it. I love that. Why do you think people hoard love? Why? Why don't they spread it?
I think something about capitalism, right, has convinced us that we are only worth what we produce.
Oh, got it.
My worth is connected to paychecks.
Oh, got it.
My worth is connected to net worth.
Got it.
My worth is connected to the trappings of middle class and upper middle class living. There's something about capitalism that tells us that production is what makes us valuable, instead of saying, no, I'm inherently and non-negotiably valuable as I am. And why I say it's capitalism, because we spend so much time competing instead of seeing ourselves as complementary to each other, right? One of the great African traditions, the Tonga people of South Africa, is they understand humanity to be complementary. We become human through each other. One of the Ubuntu idea is, I become a person because of other persons. My humanity is caught up in somebody else's humanity. Like, to be able to diminish and to abolish the competitive ways that we've been forced to see each other. Engaging is part of the work I'm trying to do in Silencing White Noise. If we were able to lower the volume on the competitive nature of what it means to be alive and to think about the complementary nature of what it means to be human, I think we wouldn't think about hoarding love, but we would say love is something that we were created for and in order to share.
Ooh, I love it. Not competitive, complimentary. I love that. And we were created to share that love. It really makes me think of the manifestations of love in your life, especially recently. You talked about looking at things through a different lens. How has becoming a husband and becoming a father to beautiful children, how has that changed your leadership style now that you're a dad and a husband?
Sure. So, husband of Delijah and father of Willie the IV.
Yes.
And Jordan Amelia. And Jordan is 2 months old.
Wow.
2.5 months old.
Congratulations.
And honestly, fatherhood and partnership with Elijah has made me more appreciative of the gift of the everyday. I'm not looking for the wow in the extraordinary and the big and the unprecedented, but literally micro blessings and wholly ordinary things, right? Give me joy. Like the smile on Jordan's face is enough to get me through the day. The gratitude that my son gives just for dropping him off at school in the morning, right? My wife being able to be a soft place to land at the end of a day. Like those are the micro graces that I've learned to appreciate, which is, I think, they have made me a happier person.
Wow, I love that.
And a happy person, I think, is what we need in our leaders.
Yes.
There's a lot of vitriol. There's a lot of crassness that exists in what we call leadership today. Not enough joy.
Not enough joy.
And so I'm excited about this moment that maybe we can infuse more joy in public leadership. Just imagine if we could have a democracy that was based on joy and not based on partisanship and division. That's where I'm living today.
I love that. Oh my, I mean, just incredible. I know I have to let you go in just a few short seconds, but I have to leave you with this quote. And then I just want you to just briefly elaborate on this, because this really, really resonated with me. Dr. Francois, you stated that you live at the intersection of the life of the spirit and the life of the mind. What does that mean?
Yeah. So for me, there is that passage where the lawyer comes to Jesus and says, they're talking about love.
Yeah, love.
In some way. What's the greatest commandment is the question. And Jesus gives that composite answer from the Old Testament. Love God with all your heart, with all your mind, all your soul, and your neighbor as yourself, right?
Yeah.
When I think about living at the intersection of the life of the spirit, the life of the mind, is reminding myself that I have a responsibility to love God with my mind. There's something about feeding my spirit that's important through contemplation, through meditation, through prayer, through public worship. Those things are necessary. But I love God through worship, that kind of worship. Yeah. But I also love God through study. Right? When I think about who I am as a professor, that's another way of me loving God. Yeah. Helping to shape minds, helping to partner with students who are working on their own curiosities. And that's what I mean by the life of the spirit, the life of the mind. Yeah. That I'm doing this internal work, but I'm also thinking about what does it mean to be an intellect that is committed to the reality of God in the world. And that's the work that I hope I will continue to do now at Union Theological Seminary, where I am associate professor of theology, and I think there's a rich opportunity that a professor has, who's also a pastor, who's also a community organizer, for really thinking about the world's problems and turning them and building community with folk who will be the ones to help determine what our world looks like and what world our children will have.
I love that so much. Wow, Dr. Francois. I feel changed. I feel convicted. I feel transformed. I feel enlightening. Just really really zoning in on different POVs when it comes to relationships, even the relationships at home as a daughter, as a sister, that will help as an individual, the relationship with myself, loving God with my mind. I know we've come certainly to the conclusion of this interview. You have so much power. You really do. It's challenging to pack this into 30 minutes, but you certainly have left us with gems and jewels that we will take with us forever. You guys, right before we close, we're getting ready to close. I want to show you the special moment that transpired between myself and Dr. Francois. That's right, folks. We're going back to Union Theological Seminary on May 18th, where I had the honor of being hooded by my professor, Dr. Willie Francois. Let's take a look at that video.
Judea Hartman.
Such a special day, like
you,
an incredible day with you calling my name. Dr. Francois, I have to thank you. I have to thank you so much for coming on the AM show and teaching us about love and justice and faith and how to become good people, evolution, how to become great leaders, how leadership is always in development. And you guys, if you want to check out Dr. Willie Francois on social media, you absolutely can do so. His incredible life-changing teachings are on YouTube. Several sermons and empowerment sessions are on YouTube, you guys. He is teaching at Union Theological Seminary right now, and he was at New York Theological Seminary. That's where we had the opportunity to meet. And you can also visit his church.
Yes, you can.
His church is in New Jersey, everyone. On Instagram, his handle is Willie Francois III. You will get so much life and so much empowerment there. You can also support him. Dr. Francois is an author, and I have his book in my hand right now, and it's entitled Silencing White Noise, 6 Practices to Overcome Our Inaction on Race, of course, by the only Willie Dwayne Francois III. Why don't you show your love for my professor, Dr. Willie Francois III, once again, everybody?
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much, sir. My pleasure. My pleasure. Definitely will go down in history, a staple moment I'll never forget. All right, folks, we're going to head on over to a quick commercial break, but don't you go anywhere, because when we return, we have just a little bit more of the AM show left. Stay tuned.